a plant used by Native American warriors, is now listed in World Health Organization research. A common kitchen herb was burned in hospitals during the Black Death to stop the spread of infection. And one berry, one you can grow in a British garden, has been shown in randomized controlled trials to cut the duration of flu by up to 4 days. For thousands of years, people weren't guessing. They were observing, testing, and passing knowledge down through generations. And modern science is now confirming a surprising amount of what they already knew. This is a countdown of 10 plants. Chosen for one specific reason, they have both a deep cross-cultural history of immune use and modern research that actually holds up. Some are already in your kitchen. One has been used medicinally for over 4,000 years. Let's get into it. We're counting down from 10. And I'll tell you now, the further down this list you go, the more the evidence stacks up. Stay for the top 3. Number 10. Sage, Salvia officinalis. Here's something most people don't know about the herb sitting in their spice rack. The name sage doesn't come from some random Latin root. It comes from salvia, the Latin word meaning to be saved. Ancient Romans didn't just cook with sage. They treated it as a sacred healing plant. There was even a formal Roman ceremony for harvesting it. Special clothes, bare feet on the earth, a ritual offering made first. They weren't adding it to stuffing. They were treating it like medicine. And in medieval Europe, sage was the centerpiece of monastery physic gardens, the herb gardens monks kept specifically to treat illness. One medieval proverb asked, "Why should a man die who grows sage in his garden?" That's not poetry. That was the genuine belief of the time. So what does modern science say? Sage contains a class of plant compounds called phenolics, including rosmarinic acid, which have shown real antioxidant and anti-inflammatory activity in laboratory studies. Some research suggests these compounds may support immune signaling. The evidence is still building, and sage sits at number 10 for that reason. The historical case is stronger than the clinical case right now. But for a plant you already own, it earns its place. Use it generously in cooking, or brew a simple sage tea with a little honey. One note, sage contains a compound called thujone in its essential oil, so normal food and tea amounts are the sweet spot. Concentrated extract over long periods isn't recommended. Next, a plant that a 17th century herbalist connected to immune health through stress. And the odd thing is, modern science agrees with him. Number 9. Lemon balm, Melissa officinalis. In 1652, the herbalist Nicholas Culpeper wrote that lemon balm was for all diseases proceeding of melancholy. At the time, that probably sounded vague and unscientific. But here's the thing. What Culpeper was observing was the link between emotional stress and physical vulnerability. And we now know that chronic stress genuinely suppresses immune function. Stress hormones like cortisol actively dampen the body's defenses. Culpeper didn't have the biochemistry, but he was watching real patterns. Lemon balm has been used across Europe for centuries for fevers, cold sores, and recovery from viral illness. And what's striking is how specifically it kept appearing for viral conditions, not just general illness. Modern research has found that lemon balm contains rosmarinic acid, a potent antioxidant, along with other polyphenols. Studies have noted antiviral and antioxidant activity, particularly in relation to herpes simplex viruses. Research also suggests it may help modulate the immune response during periods of stress-driven vulnerability. The stress-immunity connection is the real story here. If your immune system tends to dip when life gets hard, lemon balm is worth knowing about. It's most commonly taken as a tea, and it grows well in partial shade in UK gardens. Easy, reliable, and surprisingly useful. The next plant was burned in hospital wards during one of the deadliest events in human history. And there was a reason. Number 8. Rosemary. Salvia rosmarinus. When the Black Death swept through Europe in the 14th century, killing somewhere between a third and half the population, physicians burned rosemary in hospital wards and sick rooms. Not because they understood germ theory. They didn't. But they had noticed, empirically, that rosemary seemed to do something. We now know what. Rosemary's essential oils contain compounds with genuine antimicrobial properties. Burning it would have released those compounds into the air. It wasn't a cure, but it wasn't nothing either. Rosemary also has an extraordinary memory in traditional medicine. Greek students wore garlands of it during exams, believing it sharpened the mind. In ancient Rome, it was woven into wedding ceremonies as a symbol of vitality and protection. In Elizabethan England, it was laid on coffins and placed at wedding tables, the same plant used for death and new life, because it represented the body's resilience at both ends. Modern research has focused on two compounds, rosmarinic acid and carnosic acid, both strong antioxidants. Studies in peer-reviewed journals have found these compounds show immunomodulatory effects. They appear to influence how the immune system responds to challenge and stress. The antioxidant score of rosemary is among the highest of any culinary herb. It grows happily in a sunny, well-drained spot, hardy across most of the UK and US Zone 7 and above. Use it in cooking, brew it as a tea, or make rosemary-infused oil. It's a plant that has been quietly present in human medicine for millennia, and it deserves more credit than a roast potato seasoning. The next plant has been in continuous use for over 2,000 years across cultures that had no contact with each other. Draw your own conclusions from that. Number 7. Oregano Oreganum vulgare. Most people associate oregano entirely with pizza, but the ancient Greeks named it oros ganos, meaning joy of the mountain. They used it medicinally for respiratory conditions, digestive problems, and as an antiseptic on wounds. Hippocrates, the father of medicine, used it as an antibacterial herb. That was 400 BC. Ancient Chinese physicians used it independently for very similar purposes. So did practitioners in Ayurvedic medicine in India. 3 entirely separate medical traditions across 3 different continents, reaching the same conclusions about the same plant, without any contact with each other. That pattern is worth paying attention to. The science points to one compound in particular, carvacrol, found in oregano's essential oil. Studies have found it has strong antimicrobial properties and can influence immune cell activity. Oregano also has one of the highest antioxidant densities of any culinary herb, higher than many fruits and vegetables commonly promoted for their antioxidant content. Use it generously in cooking. Fresh or dried both work. Oregano oil is available as a supplement, though concentrated essential oil should be used carefully and not long-term without guidance. It grows easily in dry, sunny spots, low maintenance and reliable in UK and US gardens. Next, a herb whose immune history doesn't just go back centuries. It goes back to ancient Egypt. Number 6. Thyme, Thymus vulgaris, before antibiotics, before vaccines, before germ theory. The ancient Egyptians were using thyme to preserve bodies from decay. Think about what that means. They had empirically discovered, through observation, that thyme had antimicrobial properties strong enough to slow decomposition. And they used that knowledge without understanding the mechanism for thousands of years before science caught up. In medieval European medicine, thyme was the go-to herb for chest infections and coughs. By the First World War, thymol, the key compound in thyme's essential oil, was being used as an active ingredient in wound antiseptics and mouthwashes. It was in commercial use precisely because laboratory scientists had by then confirmed what herbalists had been observing for centuries. Modern research has found that thyme extracts can inhibit bacterial and viral activity, and that they may support immune cell function and help moderate inflammation. In several European countries, thyme extract is still licensed as a herbal medicine for coughs and bronchitis, which means regulators have looked at the evidence and found it credible enough to approve. Thyme loves dry, sunny conditions and is hardy across most UK gardens and US zones 5 and above. Fresh thyme in cooking or a simple thyme, and honey tea are the easiest daily habits. Before we get to the top 5, quick question. How many of these plants are already part of your routine? Drop a comment. I'd genuinely love to know where people are starting from. Number 5. Ginger. Zingiber officinale. Ginger appears in Ayurvedic medical texts from India, in traditional Chinese medicine texts, in Arabic medical manuscripts, in medieval European herbals, all of them independently recommending it for respiratory illness, immune support, and inflammation. That kind of cross-cultural convergence is one of the strongest signals we have in herbal medicine, because it means people with no shared knowledge base kept arriving at the same answer. Modern research gives us a mechanism to explain why. Ginger's key compounds, gingerols and shogaols, are responsible for its heat, and they've been the subject of significant research. Clinical studies have found that ginger reduces markers of inflammation in the body, including a protein called CRP, which rises when the immune system is under strain. Other research has found it may enhance the activity of certain immune cells directly. Ginger also ranks among the most antioxidant-dense foods you can eat regularly. Important because oxidative stress is one of the things that quietly erodes immune resilience over time. Fresh ginger in cooking, ginger tea, or a daily ginger shot are all well-supported and practical habits. In the UK, it grows well as a container plant in a warm, sheltered spot. The next plant is golden, literally, and it's been one of the most studied plant compounds on the planet for the last 20 years. Number 4. Turmeric curcuma longa. Turmeric has been prescribed in Ayurvedic medicine for over 4,000 years for inflammation, infection, wound healing, and digestive health. It's not a trendy wellness ingredient. It's one of the oldest continuously used medicines in human history. Its key compound, curcumin, has been the subject of thousands of scientific studies, meta-analyses. Research that pools results across multiple trials have found that curcumin can inhibit certain inflammatory pathways and help modulate how the immune system signals and responds. Here's the piece most people miss. Curcumin is very poorly absorbed on its own. The body struggles to use it unless something unlocks it. That something is piperine, a compound found in black pepper. Adding a small pinch of black pepper to anything you cook with turmeric increases curcumin absorption dramatically. Ayurvedic cooks have been doing exactly this, intuitively for centuries, before anyone understood the biochemistry. That detail alone tells you something about the depth of traditional knowledge this plant carries. Turmeric is widely available as a fresh root, a spice, or a supplement. It can be grown in pots in the UK in a warm, sheltered spot. 3 plants left. These have the deepest historical records, the strongest cross-cultural use, and the best modern evidence of anything on this list. If you've made it this far, the best is still ahead. Number 3. Garlic Allium sativum. Garlic is the most universally used medicinal plant in documented human history. Not one of the most. The most. Its use has been recorded in Sumerian clay tablets from 2600 BC, making it one of the oldest written medical records we have. It appears in the Ebers Papyrus, one of the oldest surviving Egyptian medical texts. It features in Greek, Roman, Chinese, Indian, and Arabic medicine. When archaeologists excavated the tomb of Tutankhamun, they found garlic. Workers building the pyramids were given garlic daily. Their employers believed it maintained their strength and protected them from illness. During the First World War, when antibiotic supplies ran out on the battlefield, military medics packed wounds with garlic as an antiseptic. It wasn't a romantic folk remedy. It was a calculated medical decision under extreme pressure. Modern science explains all of it. When garlic is crushed or chopped, a compound called allicin is released, and allicin is the engine of garlic's immune activity. Clinical trials have shown that regular garlic consumption is associated with fewer colds and shorter illness duration. Research has found it boosts the activity of natural killer cells and macrophages, the immune system's frontline responders. It also appears to support balance across the immune system rather than simply pushing it in one direction, which matters more than most people realize. Easy to grow, universally available, backed by 4,000 years of human use and genuine modern clinical evidence. Number 2. Elderberry, Sambucus nigra. In many European folk traditions, the elder tree was considered so powerful it was treated with reverence. You didn't cut elder wood without asking permission of the spirit of the tree first, a folk belief that reflected just how seriously people took this plant. British, Scandinavian, and Central European herbalists all independently reached for elderberry for the same condition: respiratory illness, cold, and flu. Elderberry syrup was a standard home remedy across the UK for generations, made by cooking the dark berries with honey, cloves, and cinnamon. Not because of superstition, but because people had observed, year after year, that it seemed to help. Here's where elderberry becomes genuinely remarkable. Randomized controlled trials, the gold standard of medical evidence, have found that elderberry extract can reduce the duration of influenza by an average of 2 to 4 days. That's not a marginal finding. For context, the most commonly prescribed antiviral medication for flu typically reduces duration by around 1 day. The research on elderberry's anthocyanins, the deep pigments that give the berries their near-black color, suggests they can interfere with a virus's ability to enter cells, while also helping to regulate the inflammatory response. Multiple meta-analyses have now confirmed these effects. Elderberry is, by the measure of clinical evidence, one of the best supported plants on this entire list. Elderberry grows well in UK hedgerows and in US zones 3 through 8. One essential note: raw elderberries are mildly toxic and must always be cooked before consumption. The traditional syrup preparation, cooking the berries down with honey and spices, is the right approach. And now, number 1. A plant with a history spanning 2 continents, a near disappearance from modern medicine, and more peer-reviewed research behind it than almost anything else on this list. Number 1. Echinacea, Echinacea purpurea. The Great Plains of North America. Before European contact, Native American tribes, including the Lakota, the Cheyenne, and the Comanche, were using Echinacea more widely than almost any other plant. For wounds, for infections, for snake bites, for fever, for general resilience during illness. Multiple tribes across a vast geographic area had independently arrived at the same plant as their primary immune support tool. When European settlers encountered it, they didn't dismiss it, they adopted it. By the 1880s, Echinacea was the most sold botanical medicine in the United States. By the early 1900s, it was mainstream. Then antibiotics arrived, and in the rush toward pharmaceutical medicine, Echinacea was largely forgotten in the English-speaking world. In Germany, however, it never went away. German physicians kept studying it, kept prescribing it, and kept building the evidence base through the 20th century. That continuity matters, because the modern evidence behind Echinacea is now substantial. Clinical trials and systematic reviews have consistently found that Echinacea reduces both the duration and severity of upper respiratory infections. Meta-analyses have confirmed a lower risk of recurrent infections with regular use. Laboratory research has identified exactly how it works. Echinacea enhances a process called phagocytosis, where immune cells engulf and destroy pathogens, and activates natural killer cells, while also influencing cytokines, the chemical signals the immune system uses to coordinate its response. The World Health Organization has now formally reviewed Echinacea and referenced its immunostimulant activity in its monographs. That is a meaningful threshold of scientific credibility. The key active compounds, Alcomedes, polysaccharides, and caffeic acid derivatives have all been studied in detail. Echinacea is one of the most rigorously researched medicinal plants in the world. And it sits at number 1 because no other plant on this list combines that depth of cross-cultural historical use with that breadth of modern clinical investigation. It grows beautifully in UK gardens and is hardy across US zones. 3 to 9, a striking purple-flowered perennial. Available as tea, tincture, or capsule. If you have an autoimmune condition, speak with your GP before using it regularly. So, the full 10. Sage, the ancient Roman healing herb whose very name means to be saved. Lemon balm, the stress and immunity connection that Culpeper spotted in 1652. Rosemary, burned in plague hospitals and still backed by solid antioxidant science. Oregano, independently used on 3 continents for the same purposes. Thyme, the Egyptian embalming herb that became a licensed herbal medicine in Europe. Ginger, the globally convergent anti-inflammatory root. Turmeric, 4,000 years old and now one of the most studied plant compounds in science. Garlic, the oldest documented medicinal food in human history. Elderberry, with randomized trial evidence that challenges pharmaceutical antivirals. And Echinacea, the plant that 2 continents relied on, that modern science has now extensively validated. None of these are a magic switch. There is no single plant, supplement, or habit that makes you immune. What these plants represent is something more interesting than that. They're evidence of human beings paying extremely close attention to the natural world over thousands of years, and science progressively confirming what they found. The real lesson is that immunity is built daily, through sleep, movement, stress management, a varied diet, and consistent small habits that support the body over time. If you want a starting point, garlic in your cooking every day, ginger tea in the morning, and elderberry syrup through the colder months. That alone puts you in very good historical company. Which of these surprised you most? I'm genuinely curious. Maybe it was the elderberry trial data, or garlic's appearance in ancient Egypt, or the fact that thyme was used in embalming. Let me know in the comments. If this kind of evidence-based approach to plants and health is useful to you, there's more on this channel. Subscribing means you'll see it. Thanks for watching. Take care of yourself.